published reports.
The question from the member of Congress was, is there anything in this world that you're personally responsible with or overseeing or have an active role in?
I mean, I was just pointing to what the Attorney General said about his view on whether or not prosecution was an issue or is an issue. And I would simply point you to what the Attorney General said, and I'm saying, based on the published reports that I've seen, I see no conflict between what he said and the published reports.
Because obviously that came up in the testimony provided by officials representing the IRS, part of this administration. Are you satisfied, is this White House satisfied with the responsiveness of people it sends up to testify about matters of congressional interest?
Well, that's a broad question, but the answer is yes. And if it's specific to this matter, the answer is yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Jay Carney yesterday answering Major Garrett of CBS News, talking about the Attorney General and his being forthcoming and honest. And is the White House satisfied? And Jay Carney says yes. What a shock. Welcome to the Steve Malzberg Show, everyone. Big day ahead of us, very busy day. And we start off with our friend, Chief Congressional Correspondent, Washington Examiner, Susan Ferrechio. Hello, Susan.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
Okay, so you're not at that little off-the-record party that Eric Holder was supposed to hold. Of course, Eric Holder willing to talk to the media off the record, and organization after organization after organization said, no, 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 we're not coming if it's off the record. What's the latest on that?
Well, he's only got a few takers. I believe Politico and ABC News are agreeing to go. But it does raise the question about, why hold a meeting with reporters about surveillance of reporters when they can't report what you tell them? It's sort of, it's creating this cyclical problem. And I think some, agencies are really, had a tough decision. Of course, I'm sure a lot of them were really interested in sitting down with him about this. But then the idea of having to walk out of there and not report on it. See, first of all, reporters do, in fact, sit down and do off-the-record discussions. It happens all the time in Washington. We've all, as reporters, been at these meetings where you're asked not to identify the person speaking, and you get this stuff all on background. That happens a lot. This instance, though, is really special because they're talking about the surveillance of reporters. Everybody knows the meeting is coming. So it would put these reporters in a really tough position. They'd go in there and leave, and then the whole world would know they knew something they didn't know.
Right.
So, you have to say no almost. In fact, I'm surprised anyone is going, frankly. And I'm not sure what they're going to get out of it. Supposedly they're going to be discussing ground rules for reporters, but the holders already violated that trust with reporters about what they thought the ground rules were. They didn't tell the Fox News reporter at all about their surveillance of him. They didn't consult with him at all or anything, and they were secretly nearly indicting him for criminal behavior that he knew nothing about. There's all kinds of questions being raised by this, and I think the question now is how embarrassing will this get? If all these reporters turn down Holder, where does that leave the White House and Holder at this point? Not looking like things have been mended with the media. So it does kind of lower the idea of credibility and trust from the Attorney General and the White House, I think.
Yeah, I think just a crazy stunt. I mean, like you said, any reporter who goes puts himself or herself in a crazy position with a crazy perception that what they're talking about, and they're not allowed. Now they're not allowed to say, and the secrecy spreads to them. It's kind of insane. Now I see that according to Politico, the president had a private meeting with top national security journalists, quote unquote, Thomas Friedman, Jeffrey Goldberg, Fred Hyatt, David Ignatius, others. I wonder if Joe Klein. I wonder if that was off the record.
And what happens with those meetings? Those happen. I think we've seen that happen frequently with the White House when he meets with columnists who he's looking to influence, and then the next day you see sort of a common message coming out in their columns. That's where you get the sense of how the reporting emerges from the White House. They agree on what's going to be reported, and he helps them, and they get access. I mean, that's kind of a problem, I think, with just being a long-time reporter here. I feel like reporters are willing to give up so much for access because the access is of such great value to people in Washington. If you can get the right person to talk to you, if you can get invited to the right background briefings, the right meetings, or above all, to be invited to be an audience to President Obama, how do you say no to that if you're a reporter? I mean, that's the top prize to be able to go in and sit down with President Obama. And so I think a lot of reporters are willing to trade off what I think really is their integrity in many ways, just by agreeing to these ground rules and letting the administration, letting the people having the meeting set those rules. I think it should be the other way around, and I think you lose a little bit of what's important about journalism by agreeing to these rules. And you named just a few. The meeting with the national security reporters. There was another meeting a week ago with some liberal columnists. And now we have this today with Holder, with only a handful agreeing to show up. The thing is, though, Steve, if this wasn't about reporter surveillance and Holder said, I want to have a background briefing with reporters about Benghazi that was off the record, let me ask you, how many do you think would say no?
Oh, right. All of them would show up. Absolutely.
That's
which is
right.
sad. And you wrote a piece the other day about the demand for more emails, the rest of the talking point related emails from Darrell Issa. But I want to continue on here. We're going to have Jay Sekulow on after you to talk about the 401k or the 401k, the nonprofits going after, right? Yes, suing the IRS. So we'll talk about that. But I just want to ask you about this revelation that the chairman of the former IRS commissioner, I should say, of the IRS, Doug Shulman, visited the White House at least 157 times during the Obama administration. That's more recorded visits than any other cabinet member. And by contrast, Susan, as I'm sure you know, the head of the IRS in 4 years visited George W. Bush, or at least the White House, once. 157 times to 1. Tell me what I got wrong here.
Well, Steve, no, I originally reported that, and then the Daily Caller picked up my story about that. I reported that last week after I talked to the former IRS commissioner about his history of visits with President Bush, and he told me he was there just really for one official meeting to discuss policy. As a matter of fact, he told me he was dropped from the Christmas party list. President Bush no longer invited him to the Christmas party. So not only did he not show up for the Easter egg roll, he wasn't invited to the White House Christmas party along with everybody else.
Because of an image of impropriety?
He said that they separated the IRS from the White House. They kept things at such an arm's length that he called his contact with the White House extremely limited. And that's a direct quote that he gave to me. And he said that really it was like Siberia. They had no contact. And that he found it concerning that under his successor, suddenly these meetings became far more frequent. And he said it really kind of creates the atmosphere of a sort of cozy relationship between the two entities, when in fact it's really supposed to be an apolitical, separated from the administration kind of thing. And he also told me that that he felt like, first of all, we don't even know what Shulman was doing there. At least 40 or so of those entries on the White House logs, which I reviewed carefully, say that he was there to go to a healthcare meeting. One entry states that he was there to do a biweekly. He was there for a biweekly healthcare meeting. So there was an admission there that Shulman was making biweekly visits to discuss at least the healthcare law and its implementation. A lot of those entries were left blank, and he told the House committee 2 weeks ago that there were a variety of reasons why he was there. It wasn't just healthcare implementation. So it does raise the question of what was being discussed and why was it necessary for him to be there so many times, but for others in the past not to show up at all. What's changed between past administrations and the Obama administration with its relationship with the IRS, especially in light of the targeting we now learned has been going on with conservative groups and the revelation that some of the information about these organizations has been shared with the media against the rules.
Yeah, and by we're talking to Susan Ferrechio of the Chief Congressional Correspondent, Washington Examiner, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. And just again, not only did we contrast, as you did in your original piece, the one visit made by the head of the IRS to George W. Bush in 4 years, but within the Obama administration, during the same time period, Eric Holder logged 62 publicly known White House visits compared to 157 for Shulman. You had Tim Geithner, 48 publicly known visits. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, 43. And again, Shulman, 157. It just, under these conditions, under these circumstances, it just raises all kinds of questions.
Right. I mean, it's a lot of visits. The best contrast, though, is with the Bush IRS commissioner, rather, and then with the current one under President Obama, who just stepped down last November. I mean, one visit versus 157. There's an expectation that that people from the administration will visit the White House and visit the president. There needs to be a distinction, though. The IRS is different. The IRS is not the Treasury. The IRS is not the Attorney General. Don't forget President Kennedy's brother was the Attorney General, and he was there every day. But the idea that the IRS commissioner, the head person in charge of tax, collecting taxes, that he would be there all the time, that's different, and that's really alarming, that number of visits. But we don't really know what they were talking about, and I think Americans are concerned. I know they're polling that show that issue really matters a lot to Americans, and that they're worried and want to know more about it.
Absolutely, and they also want a special prosecutor, according to the Quinnipiac University poll.
76%.
76 to 17% want a special prosecutor. Right, let's go to Benghazi real quick here. Aside from the request to the subpoena for the papers from the State Department, we hear about more whistleblowers coming forward, possibly, and people who are going to allegedly talk about the fact that the ambassador Stevens was there on some kind of mission for Hillary. Gone awry, that they're going to expose why he was there, what exactly happened, what the administration did not do. I mean, do you know anything? Have you heard any leaks about what these people might say?
I've heard a few things. I know Joe DeGeneva, who I spoke with recently, said that they're more ready to come forward. And I think that in the coming weeks, when Congress returns on Monday and Tuesday, that there's going to be more hearings and more talk about what exactly went on. I know the Republicans are eager to continue finding answers here, where I'm sure the Democrats just want this thing to go away, obviously, especially because it threatens their top candidate for 2016. That's where we get to what was Ambassador Taylor doing there. There's been all kinds of unsubstantiated, talk. We need to hear this from these whistleblowers. What was he doing there? Was he on a mission that involved shipping guns to Syria? So there is a talk about that. What was he doing there? I'm sure everyone has heard about that, at least rumblings about it. We don't know if that is true or not, though. That's just a rumor that is out there, and we're gonna maybe that may be blown wide open when we hear from these whistleblowers that what he was doing there was angering Russia, and because they were, perhaps trying to help the Syrian rebels. So that's not been substantiated. It's just one of those things that's been out there as a
I think, Susan, no matter what we find out, I think anything we find out is just going to blow a hole right through this, this timeline and fantasy and story that has been perpetuated by the White House and the State Department, and it's going to just add to the mix. And I think it's just not going to be good for this administration.
Well, it depends. I mean, if it fades away and the hearings die out and nothing comes of it, years could go by and Hillary Clinton could run, and it could be this sort of distant thing. But it's a real question right now where this is headed. A lot of people want to know what happened. There still aren't answers. And I think the key to all this, Steve, is what you mentioned at the outset. Are there more whistleblowers? Yes, we know that there are. Are they going to come forward? I'm told that they are. What will they say? What will they say when they come forward? And I think that's going to really steer the direction of the Benghazi issue between now and, at least in the coming months.
All right, Susan, thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Great, Steve. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Susan Ferrechio, ladies and gentlemen, on the Steve Malzberg Show.